Jerk leaned against the curved window of the cafe, watching the streams of luminescent cargo ships zip past the hub like fluorescent koi in an artificial pond. He swirled the thick, bitter liquid in his cup, pretending it was coffee and not some cheap, lab-grown sludge meant to approximate caffeine. Space hubs had a way of making even the most dangerous fugitives feel small, and Jerk had been a fugitive long enough to have cultivated a certain knack for looking inconspicuous without actually being inconspicuous. It was an art and he was an unpracticed amateur. Earth blend, the sign had promised, guaranteed to taste like regret and anxiety with a hint of burnt metal. He took a sip and nearly choked. Someone behind him laughed, a sharp alien trill that made the air shimmer slightly as though the sound had a physical weight. Jerk whipped around. There was no one close enough to have made the noise, yet the laugh repeated, softer this time, teasing, somewhere between a snicker and a sigh. And then he saw her. She was standing at the doorway, but she wasn't just standing. She existed there, as though the space around her had paused to make room for her presence. Long, elegant ears arched from her head like living antennae, twitching subtly, sensing him, perhaps judging him, maybe both. Her violet eyes were too vivid to be human, and yet her expression was unreadably human. A faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips, not hostile, not friendly, but knowing. The sort of knowing that made Jerk's gut curl in the best and worst ways all at once. Hi. He managed, waving a hand that suddenly felt too large, too clumsy, too human. She didn't answer at first. She just tilted her head, one ear flicking with precision, the way cats do when they're assessing whether to pounce or nap. "I told you I'd find you, human," she whispered, her voice smooth enough to slip past the roar of the hub and into the hollow corners of his mind. Jerk nearly fell off the chair. Not because of her voice, though it was impossible to ignore, but because of how, after all these years, someone had actually managed to track him down. Across planets, across systems, across bureaucratic layers designed to make interstellar tracing practically impossible. And now here she was, pointy ears and all. "Okay," he said finally, trying to recover some dignity. That's a first. Most people just send a drone or a polite death note." He raised his cup in a mock toast, which she ignored, of course, because why would a centuries-old tracker acknowledge human absurdity? She stepped forward, the air bending slightly with each motion, a subtle gravitational shimmer that made Jerk's stomach drop as though he just walked off the edge of a starship's observation deck. "You've been difficult to find," she said dryly. "You're quite good at hiding for a human." Jerk swallowed. "Thanks. I think—" He tried to summon his usual bravado, the kind he usually reserved for escaping armed mercenaries or negotiating with planetary crime lords. "I'm not just hiding, I'm vacationing. Yes, intergalactic vacation, very exclusive, very stealthy." Her smile widened slightly, and Jerk noticed the faint vibration in her laughter, a sound like wind through alien crystal. "Vacationing," she repeated, her voice teasing. "You are amusing, human, and yet you always leave crumbs." "Crumbs?" he asked, frowning. "You mean metaphorical crumbs or, oh, don't tell me, literal space crumbs?" She tilted her head again, long ears twitching in a motion that seemed almost musical. "Literal, figurative, temporal. You are sloppy in your absences." Jerk froze. "Temporal crumbs, that's new. Are you accusing me of leaving timelines behind me now? Because I'm not some multiverse tourist. I'm just trying to stay alive." He gestured vaguely toward the chaotic hub beyond the window, where ships collided with alarming frequency, and yet no one seemed to care. "Look around. Everyone's trying to stay alive." Her gaze softened slightly, though the humor remained in the corner of her eyes. "Indeed," she said, "which is why I came myself instead of relying on standard protocol. You fascinate me, human. You vanish, you evade, you stumble through stars, and yet you persist. Most species would give up before reaching the seventh system." "Persistence is my specialty," he said with mock pride. "Well, that and being exceptionally mediocre at blending in. You got me there, I'll admit." For a moment, they just watched each other across the small cafe. The hub's chaos continued outside, the lights of 1,000 worlds flickering in the distance. A drone trundled past, wheezing complaints about unpaid docking fees. A small boy zipped by on a hoverboard, shouting curses in 4 different languages simultaneously. And through it all, Jerk felt a bizarre sense of normalcy. Or as normal as anything could feel when confronted by a being who had hunted you across galaxies with nothing but patience and pointed ears. "Shall we talk?" she asked finally, taking a step closer. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, as if the very space around her knew better than to interrupt. Jerk glanced around, hoping for a witty escape. There was none. "Sure," he said, "talking sounds safe, relatively, for now. But full disclosure, I'm terrible at secrets, terrible at conversations, and extremely likely to spill your secrets without even trying." She laughed again, and the sound made his chest tighten in an inexplicable way. "Then I will enjoy watching you try," she said, tilting her head, ears quivering slightly as though she were already calculating the best way to make him uncomfortable without harming him. "Excellent," he said, managing a weak grin. "I've always wanted to be toyed with by someone who can probably bend space and reality just by raising an eyebrow. Dreams do come true." The cafe's lights flickered, briefly revealing the shimmer of her presence, an almost imperceptible aura that hinted at powers he couldn't begin to understand. Jerk wondered, not for the first time, whether survival skills would be enough to deal with someone who could literally track his essence across star systems. "Well," she said, moving toward the table, "let us start with the obvious question. Why did you disappear, human?" He looked at her, long ears brushing the edge of the doorway as she leaned slightly, eyes still locked on him, and felt a nervous laugh escape. "Oh, that's simple. I ran out of clean socks. And by clean socks, I mean a reasonably safe galaxy. Minor details, really." Her laughter hummed softly, filling the space between them. "Minor details, yes, but consequences are rarely minor, human. You've tangled yourself with threads you do not yet understand." Jerk swallowed. "Well, I can promise you one thing," he said, leaning back in his chair and gesturing at the bustling hub with a theatrical flourish. "I may be human, I may be lucky, I may be completely incompetent, but I've never been boring. Not once." She tilted her head, ears flicking like twin sails catching an invisible wind. "We shall see," she said. "But for now, perhaps a cup of your peculiar earth coffee. It smells adequate. And I am curious about your species, persistence in absurdity." Jerk laughed, almost choking on the bitterness, and realized that no matter what came next, asteroid storms, interdimensional corridors, rogue AI assassins, he had already lost the most important battle. He was intrigued, deeply, dangerously intrigued, and the alien woman's eyes, violet and unyielding, promised that whatever came next, he wouldn't be running alone. Jerk followed Lysara through the twisting corridors of the space hub, trying to keep up without tripping over his own 2 feet or bumping into walls that seemed to shift slightly as if the station itself was alive. She moved with a fluid precision that made gravity look like a polite suggestion rather than a rule. Her ears, long and delicate, flicked with subtle attentiveness, picking up sounds he couldn't hear. Sliding panels, distant footsteps, the quiet hum of the hub's core stabilizers. He tried to look confident, but mostly he looked like a tourist who had wandered into a nuclear reactor by accident. "You know," he said, brushing dust off his jacket, "most people at this point would at least offer me a map, a warning, or a polite suggestion that I might die horribly if I follow you." Lysara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced at him with a faintly amused arch of her violet eyes. "Maps are for those who do not wish to be found," she said finally. "And warnings are optional. You have chosen to follow human. That in itself is sufficient." He shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant while his heart performed an embarrassing tap dance. "Fair enough. I've always been a sucker for optional danger. Gives life a little spice, don't you think?" Her lips twitched. "Spice is a primitive incentive," she said, stepping into a shimmering doorway. The threshold rippled as if the air itself were a liquid surface. Curiosity, persistence, and a desire to survive are more effective motivators. Jerk peered at the doorway. Liquid air? Really? This place has liquid air now. I swear every time I blink, space gets weirder. You humans are always blinking, she said dryly, stepping through the threshold with the kind of calm that made his knees tremble. And yet, somehow, you persist. He followed, and the world on the other side of the doorway shifted entirely. Stars stretched like ribbons across the void, colors he had no names for painting the darkness. Their shuttle waited, sleek and iridescent, almost organic, as though it had grown rather than been built. He ran a hand along its hull, half expecting it to purr or recoil. Instead, it hummed softly, a low vibration that seemed to respond to Lysara's presence. "This thing's alive?" he asked, raising his voice so she could hear over the thrumming energy. "In a manner of speaking," she said, climbing inside with effortless grace. "It responds to intention, to focus, to alignment of thought. Try not to break it." Jerk swallowed. Intentions and focus, my two worst qualities. Noted. He stepped inside and immediately felt the ship adjust to his weight, shifting panels and straps to accommodate him like a nervous parent bracing for impact. "Okay, so where exactly are we going? You found me, which is impressive, I'll admit. But what's next? Space sightseeing?" Lysara's smile was quiet, almost imperceptible. "Next is movement and survival. The universe has questions for you, Jerk. Questions only you can answer." He groaned. "Universe questions, that sounds like a medical problem. Do we need a doctor or—" She didn't answer, only guided him to a seat that seemed to mold itself to his shape. "Fasten yourself," she said, tapping a panel. The ship shivered and then folded space, slipping between stars with a speed that made his stomach somersault. "We are leaving Clithon 7. Time will feel peculiar." "Peculiar is my middle name," he said automatically, which was false. His middle name was Harold, but in situations like this, improvisation was critical. He clutched the armrests as the stars stretched into bright, streaking lines, and the hum of the vessel vibrated against his bones. Do all alien women do this to humans? Show up, look vaguely threatening, then whisk you across galaxies? "I am not all women," she said simply, one eyebrow arched. "I am Lysara. You are fortunate that I am singular." He chuckled weakly. "Oh, thrilled. Singular and terrifying. Noted." He tried to look out the viewport but couldn't tear his eyes from her. There was a calm in the way she moved, even in the midst of interstellar travel, that made him wonder how a being so alien could feel so grounded. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was a slippery concept in the folds of space, and Jerk quickly lost track. He made jokes about everything. The way the ship hummed like a cat with indigestion, the color of the stars, even the awkward sensation of floating slightly in his seat. Lysara didn't laugh at most of them, but she did twitch her ears, which he decided counted. "You are very persistent," she said finally, eyes narrowing as the vessel adjusted trajectory automatically. "Do you always talk to fill emptiness?" "Always," he admitted cheerfully. "If I stop talking, the universe notices. And trust me, you don't want the universe noticing me quietly. It's rude and occasionally lethal." She paused, watching him with an intensity that made his jokes feel flimsy, yet somehow comforting. "Persistence is survival," she said, almost to herself. "Curiosity is interesting." He leaned back. "Interesting. That's the highest praise I've received from an alien tracker so far. I'm framing it." Their laughter, hers a quiet, resonant hum, filled the cabin, blending with the ship's low vibration. They moved through nebulae that shimmered like molten glass, asteroid fields that required Jerk to hold on for dear life, and past rogue satellites that blinked in bemused acknowledgement. Every so often, Lysara would comment dryly on his choice of evasive maneuvers or his inability to anticipate quantum turbulence, and he would respond with a sarcastic quip, sometimes successful, sometimes not. "You humans are amusing," she said at one point, ear twitching when he pretended to pilot the ship by waving his arms dramatically. Predictable in your folly, charming in your errors. Thank you, Jerk said, as a nearby asteroid barely missed the hull and he almost spilled his drink. I take that as a compliment. Most people just shoot me. She didn't respond to that directly, only adjusted the ship with a flick of her hand that made space itself bend. The asteroid drifted harmlessly by and Jerk blinked. Okay, so that's unfair. I was about to brag about my piloting skills. Lysara's smile finally broke fully, subtle but real. You will learn, human, she said, in time. And in the meantime, amusement is necessary, even in survival. Jerk laughed, feeling the tension of being hunted, tracked, and suddenly important dissolve just a little. For all the cosmic dangers, all the unknowns ahead, the moments of humor, of human absurdity meeting alien patience, made him feel alive in ways he hadn't felt in years. As the ship approached the edge of a shimmering wormhole, the final words before they plunged into faster-than-light travel were simple, yet heavy with implication. You have curiosity, human, Lysara said softly, but there is much you do not yet see. Do not underestimate the universe, or me. Jerk grinned, pressing his hands against the viewport as stars stretched and swirled. Underestimate? Never, I'm terrible at it. Guaranteed. Now let's see what your galaxy has for me, and try not to implode anything before breakfast. And with a shimmer, the vessel slipped into the unknown, two beings. One human, one alien with long, elegant ears, plunging together through the impossible, laughing in the face of galaxies that would have made lesser beings quake. The vessel shuddered as it entered the gravity well of the dying star's moon, the surface below cracked and glowing with molten veins like some gigantic, wounded organism. Jerk gripped the railing, trying not to let the surreal beauty of it or the creeping terror make him faint. You sure this is safe? He asked, half expecting Lysara to answer with a smirk. Safe is relative, she replied, stepping lightly toward the airlock. Her ears twitched as she scanned the environment, violet eyes narrowing in precise calculation. It is survivable. That is sufficient. Jerk swallowed. Survivable. My favorite standard of safety. Just above catastrophic, got it. The airlock hissed and opened, revealing a surface riddled with crystalline formations and pulsating energy streams. The artifact they sought hovered above a pedestal of jagged rock, glowing with a cold, otherworldly light. It was neither small nor modest. It was a statement, a challenge, a puzzle wrapped in the promise of power. Jerk's stomach twisted. And this thing does what exactly? Destroy galaxies, summon cosmic kittens, make me breakfast. Lysara's lips twitched. It reshapes reality where it touches. Humans call it dangerous. I call it precise. She moved closer, her long ears flicking as she studied the artifact, calculating energy fields, resonance, and hidden triggers. You will need to be careful. One misstep and I explode, Jerk said, attempting humor even though the cold pit of fear in his gut argued otherwise. Or worse, I ruin the upholstery of the universe, got it. She gave a small, almost imperceptible laugh. Yes, worse. They stepped toward the pedestal together, their movements synchronized despite the alien and human differences in gait, rhythm, and gravity intuition. The closer they got, the more Jerk felt the artifact's pulse, subtle but insistent, as if it recognized both of them. He glanced at Lysara, noticing how her long ears twitched almost like antennae picking up signals from an unseen dimension. She looked calm, but he could see the subtle tension in her shoulders. You've changed, she said softly, breaking the silence. Since I found you on Clithon 7, you adapt, you persist, you laugh in the face of what should terrify you. Jerk grinned, a weak and shaky thing. Adaptation is my middle name. Well, not literally, but it should be. I've been running all my life and I figured, why not do it with a little style? She hummed, a sound that resonated like low-frequency chords. Style and luck often intertwine for your species, but this is beyond survival. This is choice. He blinked. Choice, yeah, I'm good at those too. Mostly bad ones, though. They reached the pedestal. The artifact floated just above it, almost teasingly, pulsing in sync with Lysara's movements. Jerk could feel the energy in his bones, prickling like tiny electric spiders. He swallowed again, then reached out, hand trembling. So, we grab it and hope it doesn't vaporize us. You must align your intent, Lysara said, stepping beside him. Her hand hovered near his, guiding him subtly. Focus on purpose, not desire. Survival is instinct, but this requires clarity. He concentrated, trying to clear his mind of sarcastic quips and survival panic. Tried not to imagine the absurdity of dying over a glowing rock. Tried not to imagine Lysara shaking her ears at him in frustration. Slowly, hesitantly, the artifact's glow shifted, pulsing in time with their shared focus. The air hummed, resonated, and the surface around them shifted slightly, almost approvingly. "Good," she murmured, "steady." And then a ripple in space. Mechanical hunters, rogue drones, and mercenary life forms appeared at the edges of the moon, drawn to the artifact's energy. Jerk's eyes widened. Oh, of course. What is a glowing, reality-altering object without a side of homicidal attention? Lysara's ears flicked, and with a motion that seemed effortless, the ship's folded space resonance projected a protective field around them, bending gravity and energy in a dome-like shield. Jerk ducked behind her, muttering, "Note to self, alien women with long ears are terrifying and awesome." She rolled her eyes, subtly amused. "You are never concise, focus human." Jerk peeked out, then grinned. "Concision is boring. Improvisation is thrilling." He threw a small rock toward a drone, which exploded harmlessly in a burst of glittering plasma. Thrilling works better anyway, right? Lysara twitched her ears, almost imperceptibly. You may survive by accident more often than skill. That is not a compliment. He laughed despite the danger, adrenaline fueling the absurdity of it all. Noted, I'll take accidental survival over certain doom any day. Or night. Or whatever time it is here. Together, they maneuvered, combining human instinct and alien precision, until the artifact was secured. The drones and mercenaries faltered at Lysara's controlled resonance, then dissipated into nothing as if realizing they were no match for the human-alien duo. Jerk's stomach unclenched slightly. Well, that went better than expected, mostly. Lysara stepped closer, long ears brushing slightly against the artifact as she stabilized it. The choice remains, power or preservation. Alter the galaxy or maintain balance. What do you wish, human? Jerk scratched his head, grinning nervously. Balance sounds responsible. Also, I prefer my existential threats to remain theoretical. She nodded, wise. And yet your courage, your humor, your persistence, these have shifted you. You are no longer merely running. You have chosen. He laughed softly, feeling something in him that hadn't existed before. A sense of agency, of ownership over his survival, and perhaps even over this strange connection. Choosing feels weirdly good, he admitted. Also terrifying, but mostly good. The artifact shimmered, responsive to their aligned intent, and folded into a containment field Lysara conjured. Then the galaxy remains intact, she said, and you have grown. Jerk exhaled, finally allowing himself a sense of relief. He looked at her violet eyes watching him with quiet pride and amusement. Grown. Does that mean I have to start doing adult things, like taxes or emotional responsibility? She tilted her head, ears twitching. Only if you wish to. Growth is optional, survival is not. He laughed, the sound echoing across the moon's fractured surface. Optional growth, necessary survival, got it. I think I can